The Galactic Union vessel Ardent Hope drifted in the silent void near the burned remains of a colony world. The planet below was ash-gray, covered in the scars of orbital bombardment. No life signatures remained, except one. The scanners picked up a faint human signal amid the wreckage. Captain Ralvek, a cautious commander from a peaceful species known for diplomacy, hesitated to authorize a landing. He had seen what human worlds looked like after war. Every galactic race had, still protocol demanded rescue of any sentient survivor. He gave the order, and a landing team descended through the smoke-choked atmosphere. What they found was something beyond comprehension. Amid shattered structures and molten metal, one human lived. He was burned, half-starved, yet still conscious. When they lifted him onto a stretcher, his eyes opened just long enough to speak 3 words. "Tell Earth everything." They brought him aboard. The Union's medics treated him with utmost care. The ship's crew, curious and unsettled, whispered among themselves about the human's condition. Rumors spread fast across the fleet. Humans were a young species recently discovered, still expanding beyond their local stars. They had a reputation for resilience bordering on myth, but none on the Ardent Hope had ever met one before. The human, who introduced himself simply as Dan, recovered slowly. Even restrained by weakness, there was a quiet intensity in him that unsettled the alien crew. He asked for access to the ship's comms array. The captain denied it at first, thinking the request harmless but unnecessary. Then one night, while the crew slept, Dan found a way to patch into the emergency beacon. The transmission he sent was short, encrypted, and powerful enough to reach beyond Union borders. No one noticed until days later, when long-range sensors picked up incoming contacts, hundreds of them, moving at impossible speeds. At first, the crew thought it was a Union fleet responding to a distress call. Then the signal signatures came through. Not Union, human. The humans had come. The Union had never seen human warships before. They were massive, black-hulled vessels, bristling with rail cannons and plasma lances. They moved in perfect formation, engines burning blue-white, formation so tight it seemed choreographed. The flagship identified itself as UNS Resolute. Its commander hailed the Ardent Hope directly. "This is Admiral Ryan of the United Terran Fleet. You have one of ours." "Prepare for boarding," Ralvek tried to explain, tried to assure the humans that the survivor was safe, treated well, that they meant no harm. The Admiral listened in silence. When he finally spoke again, his words chilled every being aboard. "You rescued one of us. For that we thank you. But we've come for the others." Ralvek stammered in confusion. "There are no others, Admiral. We found only one survivor." The human's voice was calm, almost too calm. "You misunderstand, Captain. We're not talking about survivors. We're talking about the millions your Union forgot to save on other worlds. The ones you left to die when you decided they weren't strategically valuable." The communication cut. Moments later, the human fleet descended into the system, scanning every debris field, every shattered habitat, every floating ruin. They weren't just rescuing, they were documenting, cataloging, memorializing. And they were angry. Not the loud kind of anger. The cold, focused kind that builds inside until it erupts in silence. Dan, still aboard the Ardent Hope, asked to speak with the Admiral. When the channel opened, his voice carried strength it hadn't before. "Admiral, they saved me. Don't harm them." The Admiral looked down for a long moment. "We won't harm them, son. But we need them to understand what mercy looks like when humanity gives it." Within a week, every Union news channel broadcast the same footage. The humans had mobilized entire fleets to retrieve survivors, not just from the destroyed colony, but from forgotten battlefields across the stars. Where the Union had declared evacuation impossible, humans found a way. They used drones, mining haulers, even modified cargo freighters to dig through rubble and radiation storms, and they never stopped. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as human vessels appeared in dozens of dead systems. They didn't ask for permission. They didn't coordinate with the Union's bureaucracy. They simply acted. Everywhere they went, they planted beacons with the same phrase written in a dozen languages. "We leave no one behind." In the Galactic Council chambers, chaos erupted. Many of the elder races were furious. They saw humanity's unilateral actions as defiance of galactic order. The Union speaker demanded an explanation, calling it reckless interference. But behind closed doors, fear took root. Because along with their rescue missions, human fleets carried warships, too many, too advanced, and all silent. They made no threats, issued no ultimatums, but the message was clear. If the galaxy had abandoned human lives, humanity would not forget. The Council sent emissaries, pleading for dialogue. The humans agreed to meet. The conference took place aboard a neutral station orbiting a barren moon. Delegates from 30 races arrived. The human delegation entered last, led by Admiral Ryan and a small escort. Their uniforms were simple, their demeanor calm, but their eyes carried the weight of 1,000 lost colonies. The Speaker of the Council began the proceedings with a carefully rehearsed statement of regret. She spoke of tragedy, misunderstanding, the difficulty of interstellar rescue operations. When she finished, Admiral Ryan stood and said only one sentence. "You left our people to die because they weren't useful to you." The silence that followed was absolute. A reptilian envoy hissed defensively. "That's not true. The cost was too high. We couldn't risk entire fleets for a doomed planet." Ryan nodded slowly. "We understand cost, but you don't understand value. You count your ships, your credits, your treaties. We count our people." He reached into his coat and placed a small device on the table. A hologram appeared. Thousands of human names scrolling endlessly upward. "These are the ones you wrote off as acceptable losses. We found them. Every last one." The council members sat in silence as the projection flickered across the room. No one spoke. After that day, everything changed. Human fleets began constructing vast hospital stations across desolate worlds. They offered aid not just to humans, but to every species the Union had failed to protect. They restored life to abandoned colonies. They repaired orbital habitats thought beyond saving, but always they worked under a single banner, the Terran Rescue Command. Some called it arrogance. Others called it defiance. To the humans, it was simple duty. When questioned by reporters from other species about their motives, Admiral Ryan gave a quiet smile. "You rescued one of ours. That was compassion. We came back for all of them. That's what family does." Over the following months, the galaxy saw things it had never imagined. Human engineers taught alien worlds how to terraform faster, grow crops in ash-covered soil, rebuild cities with fusion forges. They asked for nothing in return, but they watched. They remembered. And when Union ships approached too close, human warships repositioned, not aggressively, but like guardians reminding the galaxy that mercy could have a backbone. Everywhere the humans went, they left monuments of light, towers inscribed with the names of every being, human and alien, they had saved. Some council members accused humanity of using compassion as a weapon, spreading influence through goodwill. But deep down, even their critics knew the truth. Humanity didn't seek dominance. They sought justice for the forgotten, and the galaxy began to change around them. 1 year later, a small colony belonging to another race came under pirate attack. Before the council could even convene, human distress relays picked up the signal. Within hours, a Terran destroyer arrived, intercepting the raiders and driving them off. The colony governor, trembling, thanked the human captain. The captain simply replied, "You'd have done the same for us." The governor nodded, knowing full well that wasn't true, but wishing it were. That was the effect humans had. They made the rest of the galaxy question itself. Months turned to years. The once feared Terran fleets became a symbol of hope. When disaster struck, people prayed not for the Union, but for the arrival of the humans. "Call the Terrans" became a common phrase, meaning, call someone who cares. Still, in the shadows of diplomacy, old powers whispered of containment. The Council, wary of human growth, debated sanctions. Some races demanded humans pull back their rescue fleets, arguing they disrupted galactic balance. But before any motion could pass, a crisis erupted. An enormous solar flare from a dying star threatened a populated world within the Council's own territory. Evacuation was impossible. The radiation storms would hit in days. The Council begged for help. The Union's own fleets were too far away, but humanity wasn't. Within hours, hundreds of Terran vessels warped into the system. They deployed shield satellites, evacuation drones, and planetary shuttles. They worked without rest, extracting millions from the surface. When the flare hit, the planet's skies burned gold from orbit. The Council watched the human fleet shield the evacuation ships with their own hulls. They took the brunt of the radiation wave. Several Terran ships were lost, but every civilian was saved. The council's speaker wept openly as she watched the aftermath. Humanity had risked everything for aliens who once ignored their cries. That moment changed the galaxy forever. A year later, the council voted to reform its laws on interstellar rescue. The new protocols were based entirely on Terran standards.